What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 104.3 Fans Halftime Chill presented by Coors Light. Happy New Year's. Will Peterson, James Merrillat, Rachel Vigil. It is Jerry's World, and it's not so bad living in Jerry's World as the Broncos are only down 3 points to the Kansas City Chiefs, 13-10, after Butker just missed that last field goal to end the first half. You guys, what grade would you assess Jerry Rosberg so far for this first half of football? Will Peterson, you first.
Oh, I'd give him like an A-, right? Because they look competitive. They look so much different than they looked on Christmas Day against the Rams. They're playing the best team in the NFL, one of the Super Bowl favorites. They're down 13-10, but they've made incredible plays on defense with Justin Simmons. And then on offense, the Russell Wilson touchdown run. Where's that mobility been all year? The offensive line stinks, or they'd have the lead at halftime. We all know that, or at least be tied. But overall, guys, you have to be happy with going into Arrowhead and you have a chance to win a game and break a 14-game losing streak to the Chiefs.
I mean, we are grading on a heavy curve if that's an A-. I mean, listen, stop me if you've heard this before. We're doing halftime chill, and the Broncos have 10 points. I mean, we could pre-tape this. It's the same thing all the time. So, yeah, there have been some points where you got off your couch and cheered. You know, the special teams made a play. They also brought the opening kickoff out from deep in the end zone and got to like the 13-yard line. Same old. So, you know, it hasn't been a disaster, but that doesn't get you an A- in my mind. It gets you a C. I mean, it's been better. They've had one penalty. That's a step in the right direction. But they've been outgained, guys, 258-137. They've been dominated, essentially. There was the great play by Justin Simmons in the end zone, the pick. That saved some points. And then they had the flip of the field fumble on the punt. That was a huge play. They cashed in. That's something they normally don't do. That's typically McManus country. So they got in the end zone. That was great. But let's not act like this is vastly different than what we've seen all year long. The Chiefs are on pace for more than 500 yards of offense, and the Broncos have 10 points in the first half. It's a lot of what we've seen all year long. It just looks a little bit better because they forced a couple of mistakes.
True. And Justin Simmons read the pick perfectly. You got to give major credit there. But is it the defense that's keeping him in the game, or is it the offense that's actually been able to get up and get moving, and something we haven't seen a lot of this year, James?
Well, look, the offense hasn't been great. I mean, they can't run the ball. Russell Wilson's the leading rusher with 23 yards. But I will give him this, and this is where maybe Will has a point with giving Jerry a little bit of credit. Time of possession, 15-18 for Kansas City, 14-42 for Denver. So essentially it's even. So while the Broncos aren't marching up and down the field, they're holding onto the ball. The best way to stop Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, have them standing on the sideline next to Eric Bieniemy. That part of it, I would give them a high grade for, a B+, because they've stuck with it. And even though the running game hasn't been great, they have run the ball 12 times. And the short passing game, little dump offs, has been a little bit like a running game, whether it's to the backs or they're on that last drive, the couple of slants to Cortland Sutton. Holding on to the ball, time of possession, that has been good. That's why this game is as close as it is, because other than the pick, the Broncos defense hasn't shown a huge ability to stop the Chiefs. I believe they forced one punt. The first punt since week 15, which is a mind-boggling stat. So that part of it they've done a good job with. That was the game plan. Control the game, control the ball. Kudos to the Broncos offense for being able to do that while not necessarily moving the ball yardage-wise all that well. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that first drive, the McManus field goal, or the first drive they scored on, that was the theme, is they kept Mahomes off the field after they forced the Mahomes punt. And then, James, like, you're sitting here giving them a C, but you're saying, yeah, but they did this good, and then they did that good, and then they did that good, and then they made a play on special teams, and that was good, and I like the slants to Cortland Sutton. Like, we finally have something good to talk about. Like, you're kind of qualifying, like, well, they only have 10 points, so it has to be a C, but they're doing everything else well. Like, based on what we saw on Christmas Day versus New Year's Day, this is night and day, and this is a team that's motivated for their head coach and wants to play football when they didn't want to be anywhere near LA on Christmas Day.
I get it, and I'm not saying it's an F. That's why I'm giving them a C. They have done some things well, and on Christmas Day, they didn't do anything well. But their offensive line has been terrible, right? They just cost them at least 3 points because they couldn't block. Graham Glasgow is one, I think he's got a terrible attitude. Just watch his body language, especially on the sideline. He stands around, doesn't block anybody. So they can't, They can't block for Russell Wilson. He's taken a beating. They can't really run the ball other than Russell Wilson's touchdown. Again, they have 137 yards of offense. So, and they've given up 258. So they're being competitive. They're in it. They've made a couple plays. They've done some things that we've all been screaming about all year. Why don't you do this? So there's some positives, but there's a lot of negatives too. Haven't been able to sack Patrick Mahomes, given up a couple of sacks, can't cover Travis Kelce. There's some of those things too that continue to be a thorn in the side. But I'm not being total rain on the parade guy. I'm saying is it's not night and day. It's not like they're up. Let's not act like they're up 24-3. But
you also have to account the opponent, James. They've lost 14 times in a row. It would shock no one if the Chiefs hoist the Lombardi Trophy in a little more than a month. Like, we're not sitting here giving them bonus points because they're losing to the Cardinals 13-10 or losing to the Texans 13-10. They're right there in Arrowhead against their arch rival, a team that's beaten them 14 times in a row. This is not what I expected, and I know it's not what you expected either. I believe your prediction was 35-10 this morning.
Which still has a chance of happening. 3 touchdowns in the second half, and they go for 2. It's 35-10.
All right. I'll bet you coffee the final score is not 35-10.
You just prefaced it with, hey, they're not playing the Cardinals, they're playing the Chiefs. Okay, so kind of the definition of grading on the curve, right? Like, we're giving them kudos for hanging in there against a good team. Another moral victory. Might be the second one in 4 weeks against the Chiefs. I mean, hell, let's make a banner. Let's hang that sucker. 2 moral victories, back-to-back moral victories over the Chiefs.
I just think you're discounting who they're playing in the history with this team the last 6-7 years. They have a chance to win this game. They're right there.
I'm with you. Again, I'm not trying to rain on the parade. I'm just trying to stop Rosberg mania a little bit. I mean,
it feels rainy. All
right. We can't agree on the grade so far for Jerry Rosberg, but how about we try and see if we can agree on the grade that a lot of people are talking about in the comments is Justin Outen is calling the plays, everybody. I've seen a lot of questions about that. What grade would we give Justin Outen so far with how he's utilized this offense? Will, you go first?
Probably like a B minus. Listen, they've had some nice plays, and you can't ignore the designs for Russell Wilson on the runs. There's been 2 of them. Particularly the touchdown run was awesome. I do like the little flip to Chase Edmonds there on the last drive. That was creative. That was fun. That looked like a Russell Wilson in Seattle type play. I like the fact that Russell's been able to throw the ball over the middle of the field, right? He's hit Cortland Sutton on a couple slants. Andrew Beck had one. He might be hurt. I'm not sure. But James hit the nail on the head. You got to be able to run the ball, and they haven't been able to run the ball. Even when they got the 4th down on the QB sneak, the only reason they had the 4th down was because Latavius Murray got stuffed on 3rd and 1. So Alton's been fine, but we all know Alton's not the answer. Clint Kubiak clearly wasn't the answer. I'll give him a B minus, but Rosberg may be auditioning for a job, not a head coaching job. I do think for as much fun as we have with that, that's a little more sort of out there, especially with the Schefter report this morning that they're going to try to make a big splash. But for Alton, I mean, he's auditioning for a job for one of the other 31 teams. He's not going to be back in Denver next year.
What about special teams coordinator for the Broncos, James?
For Rosberg? For Jerry Bear?
Jerry Bear.
Yeah, but Alton's not coming back to Denver.
No. But look, I would agree 100% with what Will said in terms of grading Justin Alton. Look, it is hard to call plays when you can't count on your offensive line to hold up for more than about 2 seconds, when you can't run the ball, and when you have skill position players that Cortland Sutton, this is the best he's looked in, weeks, and it's a couple of catches, right? Albert O can't catch anything. Like, at some point, there's only so much you can draw up and so much you can call. So the fact that they've had any success with that, and I think Will hit the nail on the head. We've had a couple of times today where we've said, that's creative. That's new. We haven't seen that before. That just doesn't happen with this team. So, the Russell Wilson, kind of sweep to get in the end zone, the 20-yard plus run, that was great. The Chase Edmonds play was great. So, I'd give him a B minus. I think that's hit the nail on the head. I think he's been better than fine. Considering what he's working with, better than fine.
Do you both think that we might have learned that Nathaniel Hackett was maybe a little stubborn in exactly what he wanted his game plan to be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've showed more creativity in that first half than we've seen in months. Like, we can debate, who's the problem? Is it Hackett? Is it Peyton? Is it Wilson? Is it injuries? But if you don't think Hackett was a major, major problem, you're just not watching. I mean, first of all, they look like they care. We've hit on that a couple of times already. They didn't look like they cared against the Rams. And second of all, Hackett was just this sort of I'm going to mesh it and we're going to trust Russell and he could never make up his mind. You see what I'm saying? Like, he just didn't have a plan. Hackett was flying by the seat of his pants every single week. So, yeah, this isn't like they just scored 27 and we can say and hammer the table Nathaniel Hackett set the Broncos back 2 years because he was such a bad coach. But you saw glimpses in that first half that, yeah, Hackett was clearly a major problem, which, guys, we've all been saying for months.
Yeah, no, there was a rhyme or reason to what they were doing in the first half. Now, let's see if they build upon it in the second half, because I made the joke about how, hey, 10 points at halftime, welcome to halftime chill. There's been a lot of times we've gotten to the post-game show, and it's still 10 points or it's 13 points. So can you build upon it? Can you make some adjustments? Can you see what the Chiefs are doing and actually be just as good, which is a low bar, or better in the second half? That would be nice. But, yeah, Nathaniel Hackett, he's that restaurant where you go into it, and there's like 12 pages and it's all different kind of foods. It's Italian food, it's Mexican food, it's Chinese food. It's all over the place. Like, well, there's no way they can be good at all this. At least Justin Outen is just sticking to one thing. And, you know, they haven't been great at it, but it's also not giving you salmonella. That's a step in the right direction.
If you're looking at your improvements for the second half, run the ball more. What's second on the list, Will?
Well, the defense has got to continue to make plays because it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, it's McKinnon, it's Pacheco, it's Smith-Schuster, it's Valdez-Scantling. They're going to move the ball. James, I know you've talked about the 258 yards, I believe is the number. That's just what the Chiefs do. You don't get the Chiefs to go 3 and out. So you know how many more times you're going to have to pick off Patrick Mahomes or force fumbles? You got 2 turnovers in that first half. You're going to have to get at least 2 more in the second half. Guys, Mahomes has thrown 4 picks to the Broncos this year. 3 in that first game, 1 to Simmons here today. You're going to have to force at least 2 more turnovers to win this game. And you're probably going to have to force turnovers in your own red zone like they did the first time. Because, again, the Chiefs get the ball up and down the field. That's what they do. But Mahomes, he also gets a little loosey-goosey with it around the goal line because he's always used to making the highlight play. They got to make 1 or 2 more of those to have any shot to escape with a victory.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. That, you know, in the first half, they won the turnover battle and the Chiefs missed a field goal. And they're still behind 13-10. Not trying to be negative, just pointing out the facts. So they kind of have to have about that same formula in the second half, force a couple of turnovers, hope for a missed kick here or there where it takes some points off the board for the Chiefs. The one other thing is Broncos need to make a big play offensively, right? That like hit one pass over the top to Jerry Jeudy or somebody's got to make a big play. And the special teams play was huge too, giving them a short field. They're not going to march 80 yards for a touchdown. It's just not going to happen, not with this offensive line. They can't string together enough small plays to keep moving the chains. So a big play on offense, I think, is a must if they're going to pull this out.
Oh, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it. And I can tell, honestly, that people are back into this Broncos team. There's like been a refreshing feeling for this team. We can see it in the numbers hanging out with us. And we have to talk. We've got like 30 seconds, you guys, but we have to talk about the fact of Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball and getting bounced back to him. How many times have you seen that freaking play? And of course, it happens to Patrick Mahomes, Will.
Yeah, he's an MVP candidate for a reason, but he also gets every bounce, right? That whole drive changed because Mahomes completed the ball to himself.
Yeah.
Geez.
I mean, how many balls does Russell Wilson have batted up today? None of them have gone right back to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very, very true. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Halftime Chill presented by Coors Light. Come hang out with us post-game, and maybe we're going to be talking about a Broncos win, an upset. All right, we'll see everybody then.